Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for another video. My name is Zoltan Schwedker, and today I have something I think is going to be really fun to go through. I'm just adjusting my audio levels. Give me just a second here. I feel like my monitor is really loud. Test. That's better. Much better. Okay. So yes, we're going to go through what I think is going to be something that's really fun today. As you can see on my screen here, we are in Excel. We're looking at some data visualizations that I would say most of the time you don't see this type of visualization in Excel. And we're gonna make the best visualizations that you can make in Excel. I don't know about that, but I would say better than 95% of Excel visualizations. And I want to set this up for, in the future, doing a full dashboard within Excel. And the reason for that is because there are a lot of places that don't have BI tools like Tableau, Power BI, and you can still get a pretty good dashboard built without having BI tools. And with just Excel, which I think most people have just Excel. So if you are working for a company and you want to blow your team away with some visualizations, stay tuned because we're going to talk about it today. And then in the future, we're also going to do a full dashboard walkthrough live stream. Today, though, we're just going to touch on some of the key, I would say like the key points of building a dashboard in Excel, things that I've learned over the past several years doing Excel work and Excel dashboards. And I wish I would have known a lot of these up front because it would have saved me a bunch of time. And just knowing that some of this stuff is possible, I didn't know was even possible in Excel. So we are going to jump into that now. I'm just checking out my levels. I think everything looks okay. I really hope the music in the background isn't too loud. I kind of try to play with it a little bit before I started recording. I really hope it's not because I don't really have a way at the moment to monitor it other than looking at my levels. They look okay, so I'm just gonna hope, or I'll record this entire thing and then realize, and that'll be very unfortunate. But let's go ahead and get started. So what I have in front of me here is just a mock-up that I did really quickly to just give you an idea of some of the things we're going to be looking at today. So when I start a dashboard in Excel, usually I'll have, my main sheet, which is going to be the main part of the dashboard. And then I'll have a secondary sheet where I will try to mock up the UI components. And this is done at the beginning, ideally, because you wanna understand, okay, what are all of my components gonna look like on my dashboard before you actually start building it out, because the overall look and feel of the dashboard usually needs to get some sort of like sign off and approval. If you're working with a team, everybody needs to be on board and understand what's going to be on that dashboard and the way things are visualized. Because if they don't understand the visualizations, there's no point in creating the dashboard. Dashboards are supposed to be a quick, easy way to get a very good overview of a data set without having to get really in the nitty gritty. And they're great for senior leadership who are usually on tough time constraints and they don't have time to get, drill down, or sometimes they don't have the skill to do a full data analyst type of breakdown on a data set. So the dashboards are important. So we want to bring those insights out, and usually you want to make sure everybody's on board with that. So I like to do a UI component kind of mock-up, and this would be something similar to like if you work with Figma. If you do UI design in Figma, kind of the same type of situation. Really what I'm doing over here is I've said, okay, I like these colors. Here's the hexadecimal codes for these colors and just some samples of what they look like. And then I've, defined what my logo looks like. I've defined what my navigation is going to look like here. And then something I really, really like in dashboards is to lay kind of a foundation in the quickest way possible to do that, I feel, is through cards, and specifically cards of like the main like key components that you're trying to show. So right here, these are just alternates of what this card could look like. So it's showing just some sample data that I pulled in. But what you see here is total number of employees. You have a previous 12 month. Let me pull that over just a little bit. I noticed it was cut off. Looks like it's cut off on all of these. But we've got a previous 12 month line chart here. And then we also have a percentage change from the previous number that we had. So this, I feel, is a really good way for somebody to get on the dashboard and say, okay, here's the high level metrics. You can see a trend with this because it shows the trend over the past 12 months. You can also identify a little bit more detail of that trend compared to the previous metric that we had. And are we increasing or are we decreasing? And if so, how much? So these here, I've identified these are just alternate cards. So just a little bit, obviously different color. This one I was playing around with where this percentage is viewed. So you can see my percentages here. I've got one up here. I like to kind of have some alternates like that. It just gives you a little bit of flexibility and more variation. Now, one thing to note, to be careful with colors. I'm probably still not great at this, but I find myself gravitating towards colors. You can see here, sometimes colors can really hinder the interpretation of a dashboard and charts. So it's important to know your audience too. Something to note that I never thought of until I had it pop up was someone who's colorblind will not be able to interpret a chart with colors the same way that someone who's not colorblind will, especially if you're using red-green, because that's the most common form of colorblind. So if your audience is colorblind, you need to think about that kind of thing. Now, obviously, I don't think you should send a survey out before you do a presentation asking if people are colorblind or not. Or maybe you should, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But that is something to think about, especially if your audience is rather large. The odds of someone being colorblind are greater, obviously, if you have more people. So be careful with colors. That's kind of a known thing. Now I really want to dive into how I kind of built these out. And I don't know that today I'm really going to get into the behind the scenes, like, okay, this shows 897. Now, if it's a dashboard's supposed to update automatically. And we can actually use all of these UI components that you see here and have them update automatically when maybe you get new report data. So in this example, and in the dashboard that we're going to build, I'm thinking in the next stream, I'm actually going to show you a sample synthetic data set that I created. And in the scenario, the company that you're working for would get a report, either, maybe a weekly basis, a monthly basis, or some type of batch processing. And so then we can connect that all in the back end that will feed the data to this front end. And we're going to use Power Query for that. It's the same engine, same thing that's used in Power BI. So like I said, there's a lot of things you can do in Excel that I think some people just immediately assume that you have to have Power BI for. Now, Power BI is a fantastic tool for business intelligence solution and development. But like I said before, most people have Excel, and I want to show you how you can do some really cool things here. So let's go ahead and jump into this. So I'm going to get rid of everything here for now. And I'm going to show you where I started with this. So I pulled open Excel and I immediately went to one of my favorite websites of all time, and it's coolers.co. This is a fantastic website for getting color palette ideas. And I just started scrolling through the color palettes, and I really settled on this color palette here. I kind of wanted to do something colorful. And for a background, I wanted this to be a dark mode type of dashboard. I've really been enjoying the dark mode stuff. You can notice all of my Windows things are in dark mode, and I just really like it. It's easier on the eyes, in my opinion. So I wanted a background to be dark. And I liked this color specifically in this palette. So what I did is I clicked on it, and that copies the hex code to your copies the hex code to your clipboard. And I jumped back over to Excel, and I hit this in the top so every cell was selected. I went up to my fill, I went to more colors, and in custom, it's going to be on standard by default. On custom here, I selected in the hex and I clicked Control V. And I'm not going to do this because I'm going to explain, but when I clicked OK on this, I just kind of looked at the color. It was a little light, so all I did was I pulled this down to where it was darker, and I made it a little bit darker, and then I just saved that color. So to save the color after I did that, I could just go back to my colors here after I'm selected in the cell, and I can just take that hex value there, and I just pasted it, and you'll notice that's my first color I pasted over here. So this sheet 2 was created, and this is my UI components sheet. And this is where I define my colors and things. This is a reference sheet, so if you ever need to edit stuff on your dashboard, you know what colors were used, sizes that were used, because things on refresh in Excel can sometimes be a little bit finicky. And so this is your state of record for all of your UI components. You can always come back here. You can paste components over and do any adjusting necessary. It's really, really important and nice to have this. For a very long time, I would build dashboards aimlessly and not do a UI components page. And then I realized later on, I'm like, I really wish I would have done that, because maybe I lost a hex code value that I couldn't find back. Sometimes Excel does really weird stuff. Like I've seen it where you would have a chart like this on your dashboard, and then you'd think, okay, I can just click on that and I can find what color this is by going to format. And this is actually a really good example. I have a gradient fill on this, but for some reason when I'm going back to this now, it's saying it's automatic colored. And sometimes you can click gradient fill and it'll show you the color again, but notice it just disappeared. And I don't know why Excel does this sometimes. I think it has something to do with groups and like grouping things together. But this is a really good example of why it's important to have that value, because I've lost hex codes before. I'm like, I don't know what color this is, because I can see what color it is clearly, but I don't know the exact color. So I'm glad that did that and worked the way I thought it was going to, because sometimes it shows it and sometimes it doesn't. I don't really understand. So bottom line, UI components page, you want it. It's important. I then moved on to just pasting my other colors in here. So really to do that, all I did was I went through here and I grabbed a few of these, this one and a few others. And I also made a darker variant of each one of them. So you'll notice this is the purple color. And then I took that purple color and did the same thing where I just drug this down just a little bit, because I like a darker variant of the same colors for charts like these line charts, where I have the bright variant as the line and then the gradient is the darker variant. It's just a really good look. So I did that with the purple, I did that with the pink, and I also did that with the blue. And those are demonstrated on these charts here. And I kind of went with this theme because it matches my logo. And when you can match the colors across the whole thing, it really just makes the polish and the finish better. So that was the colors piece, and I established that, and I just pasted the hex code value in the cell, just so I have reference of it. I could always go back here if I want this color and I can't find it anywhere. I can just grab it right here, and I can Control C, and then if I wanted to paste it somewhere, boom, I've got that color. Now Excel also keeps a little history of recent colors here, which is really helpful. And if you don't have a ton of variance, chances are your colors are probably going to always be here. But sometimes if you do too much tweaking or trying to get a color just right, one of your main colors will end up going off the edge here and you won't be able to find it back unless you've got the hex code value. So I've defined my colors. I've got my hex code values in here. I defined what logo I'm going to put in. And at the same time I'm doing this, I'm also using some reference and some ideas of, okay, I want to build a dashboard. What would I kind of like this dashboard to look like? It's going to be unique to my specific use case, but I need some sort of reference imaging. I work very well with having references. If I just have like a blank slate, it's much harder for me to come up with the same thing in a short period of time. If I've got reference images, I work much faster and much more efficient. So I'll usually find maybe 3 reference images and then end up making something with the components of each that I like the most. And so I really liked this one, and then I had some in my head that I had used in the past, and I kind of blended some of them together. So I knew I wanted to do some cards. Like I said before, I wanted to have a navigation that kind of looks similar to this, where the logo's up in that top left-hand corner. And I would say 99% of the time I end up doing that, where a logo's in the top left. So I've defined my logo. I then moved on to the cards. Okay, what do I want the cards to look like? And this is the time where you can like play around with colors and work on sizing and making sure everything looks good. And you don't have to worry about like the data set on the back end being connected. You can just use like dummy values for now. So I created a sheet 3 here that just had some dummy values in it. So I just did 1 through 12. I just figured it was months. And then I generated some random numbers here. And to generate random numbers in Excel, if you do equals and then type in rand, there's this rand between function, and you can identify a lower bound, so 0 and 1000. This is going to give me a random number between 0 and 1000. And if I click in here and click out again, it's going to keep regenerating it. So if I want to lock those numbers in so it doesn't keep changing, I can copy it and paste values, and we'll get rid of that. So essentially, that's what I did here. I just generated some random values so I take a look at what we have here. And this is what this line chart's built off of. So if I select this line chart and I go to my select data, you'll notice that it is based upon this data right here. Now you might be wondering why there are 3 series within this data set, and I will give you a little run through here. So in order to get a line chart with a gradient underneath of it, this is not a standard feature within Excel. You can't just select this on one of the charting options. This is one of many things that we're going to walk through here that you have to get a little bit manipulative with Excel and kind of tinker around and find ways to kind of hack to be able to get the desired output. So what I've done for this is I've created another series, and I've selected the exact same data. So there's 2 series with the exact same data. And then what I did was I went up to my chart design here and I changed the chart type. And instead of line, I went down to combo and I changed one of the series to area and one of them is line. And just ignore this series 3 for now. I'll talk about that in just a second. But what that does is it gives me a line, and then below it, I have some sort of fill. And when you select the fill, you can go ahead and do a gradient fill. And I think this is gonna give us the same thing I was just talking about, but I'll demonstrate how to do this. So when I select that series, I wanna do a gradient fill. So I can get rid of all but 2 of these gradient stops. And I wanna use the darker variant for this gradient. So let's go here, and I'm going to go to more colors, and I'm gonna paste that hex code in, and I'm gonna put the exact same color on the other end. So it's just completely solid, same color at the moment. To make this look a whole lot nicer though, we can take this transparency with this one selected, and I can drag that up to 100. And that gives us that look that we just had a second ago. And I did the same thing with these other colors. I just changed the colors on them. And if you needed to change that line, then you would select the line. If you have problems selecting it, sometimes if it's like overlapped, you end up selecting the wrong series. You can always click one of the series, and then in the format data pane over here, you can hit the drop down and select the series that you're looking for. Now, ideally, I would have named these series so we could identify them a little bit better, but I did not do that. So another way to kind of hack the system here with Excel is getting a singular marker on the most recent data point. And to do this, you have to be a little bit finicky and kind of have some wizardry go on in the background here. But what I've done is I've created another series here. And on series 3, you'll notice the data that's selected is this column C here. And there's no values until the very last row. And in this example, I just was really simple and I just copied this over. So if we were to get new data and this updated, this would not work at the moment, but I was just doing this quickly so I could get my UI components built. But what you're able to do when you have a third series then is you can format that one independently. So my actual line is series 1. I don't have markers on that line, and I can format that line independently. Series 3 just has one data point, and it's on the very last data point. And so I can actually go to my series 3 here, go to marker and marker options, and I can put that marker there and format it exactly how I want it. And with a little bit of help, and I'm just going to show you a simple formula for this, you could always have this identify the very last row by doing an if statement. So you could say if, for example, the one below here is not equal to nothing. So basically it's saying if this here is not empty, then we want it to return nothing. And if it is empty, we want it to return whatever value is here. And so if I do this, you'll notice there's nothing. And if I drag this down, you'll notice there's only one, and it's the very last one. So I'll go through it again. We're saying if the row below it is not empty, meaning there's a value there, then we know that that's not the last row, so we don't want to put anything in this column. But if it is empty, we know that the row we're currently on is the very last row of data, and we want that value because that's our very last row of data. And so what this allows you to do is exactly what I did here, but now it's dynamic because it's always going to identify the last row, and that's really important. So that's another way you can kind of trick the system. Now later when we get into pivot tables and working with DAX and Power Query and stuff, there's better ways to do this type of thing with a DAX formula that'll be more dynamic even, but this is something I've used in the past quite frequently actually. So that's how we get that last singular marker. Now, of course, the long way around when I first started was I would click on my line and I would put markers in here, and you can actually click specifically on each marker and delete it, and I would do this for every single one until the last one, but I would keep the last one. But of course that's not dynamic, so it's gonna change when your data is refreshed, and the whole point of this is to be as refreshable as possible, so you can just go data, refresh all, and you've got a completely refreshed dashboard with new data. Okay, man, I need to slow down on sparkling water because I feel the bubbles trying to escape, and I feel like it's hard to speak, and I don't want to burp into the microphone. So let's see. So like I said, I did my cards here with the different variants, and something to note too, really important. Graphics format, when you click on one of these, if I go to selection pane here, I try to really be as organized as possible. So you'll notice this card Alt1 is in a group, and I've grouped together all the components of that. So all I have to do if I want to copy this is do this and then Control C. I just noticed I don't have my key viz on, which let me pull that up because key viz is really nice for demonstration. So Control C, and then I can just Control V that, and now I've got that entire grouping to work with. So let's go ahead and walk through how I built one of these cards from scratch, because I think it'll be a better demonstration. So I'll start with the background. I'll go Insert, Shape, and then I will go down here. I'm sorry, I just burped in the microphone. Hopefully you can hear it. And then this gives me my border radius. I usually don't like too rounded of a border. It gives me like early Apple design vibes. So for this one, what I did for colors is, and don't forget you can always right click and format shape to bring up the colors. I did a white fill, but I did a 95% transparency, which gives me that nice look. And then I don't want a border line. I'm just not a huge fan. Okay, so now that I've got that, I can go ahead and get my icon in here. So we'll go Insert, Icons. And I think I just did like people. And I did this one. And of course, we want the fill to be, I think I actually did like a muted. Was it this one? Maybe it was the center. And I'm going to scale that one down to about right there. Okay. And the next thing, keep in mind something I did too. At the very beginning of this, I like to define my font for the dashboard. So I go to Page Layout, Fonts, and I change my font right here. I've got Roboto font on. I just really like that font. It's very modern, minimalistic font. I use it on a lot of my dashboards. So we'll go Insert now, and we'll go Text Box. Oops. Text Box. And I'm just going to do the same. Total employees. And we're going to do white on the text. And I'm going to scale it up quite a lot. And I always like to left align things because the I goes to left align a lot. Centered, everyone always thinks centered is the best. It's not. There's been a lot of studies done of people's eye paths when they're trying to interpret something, specifically charts and graphs and reading, just plain text. And what they've actually found is left aligned is much easier to follow and read than a lot of times centered things. So keep that in mind too. There's a lot of like interesting science that goes into like human interpretation of different things, and I think it's fascinating. So the next piece, I'm just going to copy this, Control C, Control V, and this is going to be our number, but it's going to be bold, and I want it to be quite a lot larger. I'm just going to do 897 again. Let's keep going up in size. I think that's the same size. And something that I use frequently too is you can always hold Shift and select multiple things and align them like this. And I use that pretty frequently. And you can always also, if I select this, it's got the cursor flashing, but if I hit the border, now I can move it with the arrow keys, and that gives you a lot more fine-tuned adjustment. So that's very helpful as well. Okay, so we've got majority of our card done here. Now for the graph, I'm gonna make the graph from scratch. We're gonna use this same data set over here. Oh no, my mouse is about to die. Hopefully it doesn't die in the stream. It usually warns you pretty early, so we should be fine. So I'm going to insert, and we're gonna go to line. And this gets really bad before it gets better, so just bear with me for a second. We'll go to select data, and I'm gonna add a series, and I'm gonna click this and go to my data. And this is my data here. Again, I'm gonna add another series with the exact same data. And we also want to add our series for our marker. So our marker column is here, empty except for the last one. And you could name these series too. Ideally, you would do that, but we're just quickly doing UI componentry here. So I just want to show you quickly what we've got. I'm gonna get rid of the title, and this is just a trend line, so we don't even really need to see this. Also gonna delete the grid lines in there. And then for the final shebang, we're gonna go no fill and no outline. And I need to go to chart design, change chart type, and now combo. And for series 1, we want line. Series 2, I want the area, and that gives us the area underneath. And for this one, we can select this and turn the marker on, or I can just select line with markers, and I think the marker is on by default. So we can do that. And now is where we can kind of play with colors and whatnot. So one thing I really like is the smooth line. And I will warn you here, this is something that's frustrating with Excel, but I don't have a way around it. If I turn on smooth line here, there is no way to smooth the line of the area chart. So if you have the area chart on, sometimes if you've got big changes or a volatile data set, it's gonna do things like this, and it's really frustrating. I don't have a way around this. If you do, in the comments, please let me know. I would love to know. I've tried so many things. But what I've found is if your chart is small enough, and usually when I'm doing these cards, the chart is pretty small because it's just supposed to identify really a trend line. I notice you don't see it too much. And so let me center this up. And I'm gonna move it down just a bit. I actually need to make the card itself bigger. Okay. But I notice you don't notice it as much. And something else I do too is I end up making this line usually somewhere around 4 points, and that'll just stick in the line so you'll see it even less too at that point. So I want to select my line here, or I can select series 1 from this drop down. And I'm gonna go to, we do the lighter color. So I could go grab my color here, but I've actually got it in the history still, which is nice. So I can do my lighter color, and then I'm gonna select the area piece, or go here, and we know that's series 2. I can go gradient fill, and it remembered the purple for some reason. And I am using this darker blue here for the fill. Something that's interesting with color science, I've noticed if I'm doing a light mode dashboard, it looks better when the line is the darker variant and the gradient is the lighter variant. But I've noticed it's the inverse when you're doing a dark mode. It's pretty interesting. So we will do that, and then that bottom one we want to be 100% transparency. And I can pull this to make it a little bit bigger. And let's bring it up just a tad. And then something else I did too to identify, well, let's get our marker in here. So I can hit that last point and it selected series 3, or again, I can go to series 3 here. And I'm gonna go to the marker options, built in, and I almost always do the round marker. Did I select the round one? Yeah, that's hard to see. And usually between 8 and 10 on marker size is what I do. Solid fill, I'm just gonna do something pretty dark. so it kind of matches our background. And then I want to do a solid border line, and it's going to be that lighter blue. And I'm going to go up to maybe, did I do 1.25? Actually, looks like I did a bigger marker on these. What size? Okay, I did a 10 with a 1.25 border. So marker options, let's go up to 10. And that looks pretty good. So that's what's got our marker. And then the only last thing I did on the cards is I inserted another text box. So let me just copy and paste this text box. And I just did Prev 12 month. And this is just a little footnote really for anybody reading it, so they can just get a quick idea of what that is for. And I actually think instead of choosing a text color, I think I did white on this with a like 90% or 85% transparency. Let's just go 80%. And then of course, make it way small. Just a little footnote for anyone interested. Previous 12 months. Okay, so this is where the grouping comes in. I go to, I just select a shape. Usually I'd go to the shape format and then the selection pane. And you can turn on and off to see what stuff is, or select it and it'll show you. So I know I want this here. Obviously want the chart. Looks like I'm actually gonna have to select sometimes selecting these things can be a little challenging. So I know I want that, I want the chart, I want this, the icon, and then the background. And I'm gonna group them all together at the same time. And now what we've got is a card here that I can drag around. If I wanted to align it with these other cards, I could select them. In the graphics format, we could center align them. I could distribute them vertically. And now you see we've got them all here. So I'm gonna delete it because we already have them, but I wanted to walk through that so you could see. And obviously we mimicked this one here that didn't have the percentage. I'm gonna show you how to do the percentage real quick. So this is also a little trick that you can do if you've got data and you want it to refresh. So this here is actually a linked picture. So I'll normally, if I have any linked pictures, I normally create a separate sheet specifically for them because they're very sensitive to cell size format changes horizontal and vertically. So for example, if I had a piece of data here and it says 12%, it's in white text though, so you can't really see it. But that's because when I link it over here, we have a dark background so you can see it. But I've got a conditional format on this, and it's just an icon set, pretty simple conditional format. And what I've actually done is something you'll want to do too if you've got a linked picture like this. You're going to want to make sure grid lines are turned off, because if I turn the grid lines on, you notice what has happened there. So what I've done is I've Control C or copy and right click, paste special, linked picture. Boom. You've got a linked picture. And this will actually update when the other one updates. So if you've got pivot tables or data that refreshes and you've got a linked picture to it, when you click refresh all and that table updates or that data updates on that other sheet, it'll update on your dashboard. Super, super helpful. It blew my mind when I figured that out. It opens the door for a lot of cool stuff like this, and use your imagination. There's a million other things you can do too. Something that might be helpful for this is to lock the formatting, and for some reason I'm drawing a blank on how to do that, but there's a way you can lock the format sizing of the cell, and it might be important to do that because if I were to go over here and stretch this thing out, weird things happen. I might want to left align it though, so that way is not sensitive. But if I did something like that, now you see the problem. So usually I would give it enough space so that way it has room to grow. So if it went to 100%, like I could even test this right now. If it went to 122%, I still have the space there for it to grow. But now it's left aligned. So it'll always stay up next to the left of that arrow. If it wasn't left aligned, it would, be further out. But I would left align it and then give a little bit of space for it to grow in case you get a really crazy percentage. Or count change if you're not doing percentage. And that also component is inside of the group. So like we selected all that, we grouped it. You would want to select that as well and then group it. So here, one of which doesn't have this, and then these two top ones do have that. And I couldn't figure out which one I liked better. I was like, the 12% up top or here. Creating some alternates is good because then you can decide later on which one you like. Or if you're trying to get approval from people, you can always ask their opinion as well and say which one looks better. If they're like the end users of the dashboard, that feedback is very important. Okay, I don't have a whole lot of more time tonight, but I'm going to quickly, what do we want to go through here? I can go through navigation real fast, and then maybe we'll hit on this, and then the scatter, I can go through maybe another time. Like I said, stay tuned to the channel, hit the subscribe button and like this video for more content like this, and turn on the bell notifications when you subscribe, because I am going to be doing a full dashboard build out, very similar to this, probably with the same data set that I'm using, that I generated, and we're going to do a really cool dashboard with this whole theme and color scheme. I didn't have enough time to do it today, but I wanted to at least get on here and show you some of this so you can go out there and blow people away with your dashboards. It's funny because people that don't know how to do some of these things in Excel, they're like, you look at that and you're like, that's not Excel, but it is. And it blows people's minds. It's really fun too, especially if you like UI design or UX design and stuff. So navigation, this is important because if you have multiple pages to your dashboard, some dashboards will just have like a main page and you'll have filters where you can filter everything, and that's cool. But some data sets or some data you might not be able to really do that. So you'll want to have like separate pages for different things. And so for this data set, I just kind of came up with like a main page that shows like the key highlights. And then there's going to be an employees page, which shows more detailed data about the employees. And then a recruitment page, which is even going to have more detail about that. So I liked the setup again of one of my reference images, this one here, where you've got the logo at the top and then you've got your navigation below. And you might be thinking, okay, this is Excel, you can't have a navigation. Well, that's where you're wrong. I'm going to show you. This is another thing I learned, and I was like, this is really cool. Doesn't seem like it would be something you could do in Excel, but it's super simple, and it was just under my nose the whole time and didn't know about it. So what I did was these are literally just an icon and then a text box next to it. And I will get the selection pane here so you can see. Navigation's broken down into the logo and then the pages. And then I've got the three different pages here. So if I got a main, it's consistent of the icon and the text box. And so if I select main here, well, for some reason it's not wanting me to do that, but this is where Excel can be a little finicky with groups. I don't like their selection pane in the groups very much. They're very finicky. But what I wanted was the active tab to be white and then the other ones to be muted. So something that's really neat though that you can do, and I might have to ungroup this. You know what? We're gonna leave it on this page and then I'm gonna paste it over onto our main page here. So let's just go ahead and grab this component and we're gonna pull it over here. I'm just going to stick it here for now. Something I want to turn off quickly is if you go up to File, what's it under? File Options, and then go to Advanced. If you go down to Show Sheet Tabs, We're going to leave that on for now, but you'd want to turn that off when your dashboard's in production and ready to go. We're going to show vertical, horizontal scroll bar, turn those off. And then there's also, let's go, formula bar. We want to keep that. There is a column and row headers that you can turn off. Oh, show row and column headers. And that just kind of cleans up the UI of Excel and makes it a little nicer. You can also get rid of the formula bar and collapse the ribbon too, which helps. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to ungroup this for a second to demonstrate this next piece because Excel is weird. So I want to select this group, and this is gonna be a button. So let me just actually do this one first. So I'm gonna create 2 more sheets. This is gonna be our employees sheet eventually, and our recruitment sheet. I think I spelled that right. And then I'm going to create links to those pages. So if I go to link, I can go to place in this document, and I can select employees, and it's just going to reference cell A1. And screen tip, I usually make this the same. If you don't define a screen tip, it's going to show like a nasty long link, and you don't want that when you hover over it. So if I hover it now, it says employees. If you didn't define a screen tip, it would be a really long link. But when I click on this, I now get the employees screen. And I'm actually going to delete this because I want to show you a better example. I'm going to copy this main one, and I'm going to name it the same, employees. And what I will do is, so what it did there is it jumped to the employees tab. I don't know if you noticed that, employees tab. Now we're on employees, we're not on main anymore. So I'm going to, you have to right click sometimes. I'm gonna make this white now. And on the graphic, I'm gonna make it white as well. And now for main, we want that to be the muted color. I can't remember which one I did. I think it's that one. And we want this to be the muted color now. And now we're on employees. So if I go back to main now and I select employees, we're on the employees tab now. That's highlighted. And you could just do this, like if I wanted to link back to main, I would select this and we would go link, place in this document, back to main, screen tip, main. Okay, so now I can jump back and forth between these two, and you can see, the user knows where they're at because of the highlight. And we specified it to jump to cell A1, and you're gonna see this nasty Excel thing every time you do that. But there's a way around that. If you insert a shape and just do a rectangle, and we're gonna make it the exact same color as the background, which I don't remember. Oops, sorry, that was the outline. It's not that one. It looks like it's that one. And so what we've done, I'm gonna put this on the employees tab as well. Top left corner. And now what we can do is whenever I jump back and forth here, you're not seeing that little selector anymore, which is nice. So again, another tiny little tip for Excel to make it look nicer. Less like Excel and more like an actual application dashboard. So that was the links. And then what's nice is when you have this componentry built out, you can just quickly grab stuff. Like I could go ahead and build out like a really quick section just by grabbing my components. And then obviously you would have to define your data connections and such after the fact, but you can quickly prototype then. If I select all these, I can align them in the middle, I can distribute them horizontally. Now we've got a nice dashboard, cards across the screen. I could grab my scatter plot here, and I could pull my scatter plot in, kind of try to line that up. And I could also pull in my bar chart here. And something I want to call out real quick too. So the bar chart, being able to independently color the last or the most recent column is very similar to how we did this last marker. This data set actually is the same exact data set, and I just have another series that again references that column that only has data in the last row or the most recent row, and then I can edit that series independently just like that. So then what I normally do is I'll color all of the previous chart elements, like a light gray or a darker gray or something, and then pop out that last or that most recent data set, or that most recent bar. So yeah, so that's a very quick stream tonight. Just wanted to kind of go over some key highlights. We are going to dig way deeper than this, and we're going to build out a really, really cool dashboard with this data set. And I'm going to go in the weeds. It's going to be a long stream when we do that. And I'm hoping to maybe do that this week. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you get notified when I do that one. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys go out there and you use some of these little techniques and tricks to build something really cool. Feel free to share anything you build with me, and I would be very happy to take a look and whatnot. I'm always trying to learn new things too, so if you come across something that I didn't show, or a better way to do something that I showed, please let me know in the comments. Always looking for new tips and tricks. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here. I hit on the main things I wanted to talk about in this one, and I'm looking forward to doing the full build out. I've got a really cool data set actually that I used ChatGPT to generate. So we've got synthetic HR data that I just used ChatGPT to generate for us. This is completely made up data set that I use ChatGPT to help generate. So we're gonna dig into this guy and build out a cool dashboard with it. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. All right, bye.